So welcome to this lecture video on space, time, motion, movement, and sequence, and why you wouldn't think of a building as something that has motion, movement, and sequence in the sense that it, beyond things like operable doors or mechanical systems. There's actually motion, movement, and sequence in some of the best designs that you'll see. And I'll show you what I'm talking about here in a second. So let's start with space. As we know, space is, three-dimensional, two-dimensional space that can be positive space or negative space. Okay, when we talk about space, we are talking about the positive space are the objects, the forms, the shapes in the space, while the negative space is the space that's surrounding it. Now, the key to really good design is making sure that the negative space isn't just leftover space, because most of the time it is. Space is just the stuff that you didn't know what to do with, or you didn't have anything filling in there. Really good design, and here's an example of it in the Chihuly Museum in St. Petersburg, Florida. And if you guys are ever down there, go. It is one of the best museums I've ever been in my life. Absolutely loved going there. But here's an example of a space. What they did was they've got these beams that go across the room, and there's plexiglass or glass that's over it. And then on top of it, they have put a bunch of his work. And the light then shines through that. And so the negative space is filled with all these beautiful caustics. That's what these are called when light hits an object after going through glass or water. It's caustics. And so the space becomes filled with people and caustics. And so it's really nice how the negative space here is thought about in a very clear, definitive way. And that is hard to do, but that is brilliant design. When you talk about museums itself, like the museum building is three-dimensional design. Architecture is the interior and exterior design of habitats, right? So therefore, the exhibit space within the museum is as important as the art contained within it. And that's why you don't just see museums anymore that are just empty rooms where the art is the only art. Now the museums themselves are art. And sometimes we talk about commercial, or often we talk about commercial architecture and residential architecture as separate things. And while they are in the sense of function, a large percent of the time, I don't know what, I was going to try to throw a number out there, but I can't. There's a lot of overlap. I mean, we still inhabit commercial architecture. So it is not without its need to be places where we live, just like our homes are. It just serves a different function in the sense that you go there to work, as opposed to home, where generally you don't go there to work, though people do work from home. Frank Lloyd Wright once said, "Space is the breath of art." What he meant was that unlike, all the other elements of art, space is found in nearly every single piece of art that's created, and that's because we live in space. How do you escape it? Painters imply space. Photographers capture space. Sculptors rely on space and form, and we architects build space. It is a fundamental element in each one of the visual arts. And as we have looked at many times, you will see this building. Anytime you have a class with me, you will see Frank Lloyd Wright's work, because I've visited his work and I still think he is one of the most visionary residential designers to have ever lived. The spaces in his designs are amazing. And so, in this one, the building, as you know, straddles the river right before it comes out to a waterfall. And so, we think about how now the space, the habitable space is just completely reverberating with the sound of the waterfall, which in many cases will cancel out anything that sounds like a human being. I haven't visited this one yet, but it's on my list. I just can't, I can imagine how amazing that would be to live there. You wouldn't hear the television or noises of furniture. You would hear that waterfall. What a brilliant design, right? So Stanley Kubrick here is on the set of 2001: A Space Odyssey, which was inside the spaceship Discovery 1, which is where the movie was shot, which was their residence. They lived there. And so, there's an opportunity to look at space beyond the traditional way that we've looked at it. And that's why I threw this in here. I mean, I wanted to get you guys to start thinking outside the box. Because now, as we're getting close to being done, we've got one more lecture series after this one on elements. We're going to start talking about the principles, and then it's going to be time to start applying it. And it's really, really important to start when you're fresh as a student, to learn the rules as quickly as you can so you can begin to break them while your brain is still building neural pathways associated with your career path. Because I will tell you this, there's that saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. We know that's not true, but what we do know is it's a whole lot harder. That children who learn a second language pick it up very quickly. That an adult later on in life trying to learn a second language, it's a lot harder. And it has to do with the plasticity of their brains. And so it's like that now as you guys are learning this. Not everybody's going to be very young, but most students who come into college are still young and your brains are not done building. So now, if you get outside the box now, that will stay with you for the rest of your career and you will become a visionary yourself. And so I'm going to throw things at you as I have. We haven't just looked at traditional houses. We've not just looked at ranch houses or craftsman houses. We've looked at a lot of different types of architecture because I really want to emphasize the fact that every designer, every time you design something, your goal is to design something that has never been designed before. And you do that by seeking inspiration away from traditions. I'm not saying you can't be traditional, but if you guys want to be able to really get out there and serve a wide variety of diverse clientele, the more flexible you are, the more options you have, the more clients that you can serve. And so as I just said, the blue bird here on the perch is the positive space. It's the object that occupies the space. The blurred out background, that's our negative space. And while it may seem like it's just leftover, it's not really. This is beautiful gradient of grass and tree and foliage. And we know that's what it is because of the color. And so the original photograph is the upper hand left-hand corner. And in the right, I've changed the colors, or someone else changed them and I borrowed the photos. I can't remember. And then again on the bottom, right? So all of this has been changed. How does it affect the positive space? Because the pinkish oranges and the bird are contrast with each other, they're opposites on the color wheel, you see that it pops out more. The bird stands out more from the background. The positive space really is distinct from the negative space. Whereas on the bottom left-hand corner, they're the same color. They practically blend together. So this one is happy in between. So in three-dimensional art and design, the negative spaces are usually the open or relatively minimal parts of the piece. However, it should not just be the leftovers. As you see in this poster that was designed for Disney, the negative space is her hair, or the bear, or the demon. I'm not sure what that is. The negative space. It could be both, right? So sometimes it's her hair when you're seeing the creature, and when you're seeing her hair, the negative space becomes the creature. So they go back and forth. So in both cases, they have been treated like they are a very important aspect of the composition. And they are. And this is a really good example when negative space is considered as much as all the positive space and the positive elements, how you can create some really amazing design. So in order to create perspective in art, we really have to be able to use space. And over here on the right, you'll see 1-point perspective, 2-point perspective, 3-point perspective, multiple point perspective, 4-point perspective, and 5-point perspective. And you can keep going, but you might drive yourself a little nuts there. And so we do this right on this 2-dimensional page. We create this illusion of space, as we've talked about, right, by stretching lines to a vanishing point. So it gives us that illusion of space that we can draw on a 2-dimensional plane. And no matter what medium that we use, we often consider space that our work goes in as part of the overall impact. And so the sofa inside the room, right, is the sofa is designed for the space that it will inhabit. The artwork is designed for the wall, which is the space on which it will be hung. And so when we begin to see that these elements come together inside the space, that's when we begin to create habitats. So this is really cool. It's installation art, but again, it's still interesting use of building components, right? It's art, but it's still architecture. And so some of the things that need to be taken into consideration, because this is an outdoor installation, is there a tree? Will it cast a shadow? Will it block the light? Where will the sun be at a particular time of day? Maybe there's a performance going on here. Maybe that's a stage. I don't see how that could be a stage, but you know. How large is the room? How large is the space? How is the environment going to impact the space? These are all questions that we have to ask ourselves. So you can then also move into the next level and really consider space beyond the confines of the 6 planes of the box. Space is just very powerful because we can't leave it. We inhabit it. It's everywhere. And so every time you look at a new piece of art or artwork or design, think about what the artist was trying to do with the use of space. For example, what was the artist trying to do here? What was the designer trying to do in the use of space here? And my opinion is that they were trying to mimic the flow and pattern and repetition in nature with building materials. Because I feel very much here like this is a organic, though built environment, still organic. Okay, we're going to stop here and continue in the next video.